like this right here. This is what you do. I play this over and over.
Looking at that camera.
Huh?
Looking at that camera. No, look into it when you're dancing.
I can't see myself.
Yeah, move into it so you can see it.
Let's go like this. Watch this. Like this right here. Oh, that's so awesome. That's such a good song. Jet likes this song.
All right.
Okay, let's go. All right, back again. Killerwinds podcast. Whoa, jeez. Oh, Pete, you just need me.
Dude.
Golly.
Give me some space under there.
Getting a little aggressive. Sorry about that. We got to start over.
All right, back again. Killerwinds podcast.
That's my line. Yeah. Oh. Okay, back again. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast. I can't say Ozonics Killerwinds podcast. Back again. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast. I'm Cole Tanner.
I'm Nick Simon.
Back at it.
Back at it.
We are casting of the pod.
Yep.
Podcasting.
Yeah, it's been a long time since it's just been me and you
Yeah.
in the stew.
It's been a couple weeks because what did we do? We've actually had some pretty cool guests.
Yep, we had Scott
Elrod, CEO, owner, the big guy.
Yep.
For Ozonics. That was pretty cool.
Yep. Dwayne Diefenbach.
Yep, Dwayne Diefenbach. We talked about the deer forest study in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Which was mind-blowing.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
We did the podcast, and I feel like I've watched it like 3 or 4 times just to like unpack and try to really understand and go through everything.
Yeah.
'Cause there's a lot there.
Yeah. It's unreal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the moral of the story with that whole thing with Dwayne and the deer forest study is a couple things. One, we overcomplicate deer hunting. You know what I mean? Like, it just really comes down to like, get out in the woods.
Yeah.
If you can spend time in anywhere during the rut, whatever couple weeks or months that is in your area, region of the country, for Iowa and the Midwest, second half of October through November, if you can be in the woods, that is your best opportunity.
Yeah. Don't worry about anything else. If you got the chance to go, then go.
Yep, absolutely go. I also think that I would say number 2, that I feel like I realize that we all put too much stock in what we see and what we encounter in the field.
Yeah.
I think Dwayne tried to shed light on the fact that he's like, listen, you as an individual hunter, you are out there looking at one spot at one time.
Yeah, exactly.
In your tree stand within a couple hundred yards, or even your trail cams are looking at a small section on a larger surface area of the area that you hunt. And he goes, but I see all of it. I see all the data points. And he goes, a lot of times a hunter's perspective becomes the variables.
Yeah.
Sometimes it probably falls in the middle.
Yep.
But I think I know I have the tendency to put a lot of stock in what's happening right where I am. Be like, oh, well, they're locked down.
Yeah.
Or they're this, or they're that, or man, they're chasing, they're seeking, or whatever. And it's because of what I see. But I think from now, moving forward, I know, and it's feel like it's something I already knew.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like I just have been, my attention and focus has been more about, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
Get in the woods.
Yep.
Just be in the woods.
Yep.
We overcomplicate it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But the other thing I will say in the devil's advocate argument to that is that are there truths and are there advantages? Are there nuggets within all these other ways of doing things, the way that we were taught when it comes to, temperature or moon phase or whatever it might be? Maybe, right? Like I look at, just like ozonics, like scent elimination in general. A lot of people, and we talk about this all the time, they look at scent elimination like all these little building blocks that you try to stack up to get over this hurdle of success. And I think strategies during the rut can a lot of be the same way.
Well, and I mean, the thing is like before we heard all this stuff from Dwayne, we still killed deer before.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't know. There's so many ways that you can do it and be successful.
Yeah.
There's not one really right way to do it.
Yep. Yep. And it's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. And I think it's interesting too, to just see how, like I said, there's so much stuff out there now and it's so more accessible right at our fingertips on our phones.
Yep.
I feel like that has evolved so much in the last how many years?
Without a doubt.
You know, but I think when you look at the deer force study and just really get down to the brass tacks, it just comes down to just be out there.
Yeah.
If you can put seat time in, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yep.
You know, so cool. Well, what we're talking about today is everything to do with just bow hunting, shooting bows, gearing up your bow, shooting your bow not only during the summer, but during season.
Yep.
We are just going to cover
pretty much, we're going to try and cover as much as we can.
Yeah, just a plethora. And I guess I would say before we get into it is our disclaimer is this is just our opinion. This is our perspective. You know, we're going to talk about what we shoot.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's right or wrong.
Yeah. What we've been doing, how we do it.
Yep. It's not like that this is the only way. It's not like this is the only gear that's out there.
Yeah.
There are so many manufacturers that are making unbelievable bows and sights and arrows and everything.
Yep.
It's next level. You know, this is just what, I don't know, this is just what we chose.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And like you said, and it's interesting because, you know, like you and I shoot Matthews bows and, you know, Scott and Buddy have shot Matthews. They shoot Elite. I have buddies that shoot Prime. I have buddies that shoot Hoyt.
Yeah.
I have buddies that shoot recurves.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's tomato.
Yeah.
To each his own.
Yep.
They're all pretty amazing.
Yeah, they're all, I mean, pretty neck and neck, I feel like.
Yep.
You know, there's really not one that's like, this is the best.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. So that's our disclaimer before we start.
Yeah.
But I think the cool thing about this conversation too, between you and I is, you know, I have been fortunate these last couple, however many years, to be shooting kind of like the flagship bow or the bow or newer compound, or I shot the compound that I felt really comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And so year to year, it's incremental changes, incremental improvements.
Yep.
But it's been a long time since you've never had a new bow.
Never
this
had
is
a brand
your
new bow.
First new bow.
Yep.
So I think it was really fun to watch that in your excitement, in your reaction, not only to getting it, picking it out, getting it set up, shooting the first time. It was kind of fun for me because it, you know, it's just like you only shoot your first year the first time.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
you only get a brand new bow the first time.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's kind of been fun for me to watch you kind of go through that. And it's kind of sparked a more of a fire in me.
Yeah.
Just like when I go with my kids, it's just like that fire just burns a little bit brighter.
Yeah.
And it's been fun to kind of experience that and go through that with you.
Exactly.
Because it's been interesting to see how that's all gone.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's been a really fun couple of weeks just with the bow itself.
Couple weeks, couple months.
Yeah, I guess so. Gosh, dang.
No, it's been a couple months. I had to listen to you every day say, "Is my bow gonna come? Is my bow gonna come?" I called Matthews 3 times, just asked him for a tracking number.
No,
you can give him a fake number. I don't care. Just give him something.
It's such a lie.
He's gonna have a mental breakdown.
It's such a lie.
I'll tell you what, though, that's what everybody does. Everybody counts it down.
Yeah, that was the longest couple months from when I ordered it to when I got it.
It's the old adage, man. It's just like when you're driving. When you go on a trip, it feels like 9 hours to get there and 20 minutes to get back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But no, it's been sweet. I shot my last bow was a Creed XS by Matthews, and then jumped to this Phase 4, and it's just crazy the difference. Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Yeah.
When you get a new bow, obviously you get perfectly fitted, whatnot. And the bow that I was shooting before I was like 2.5 inches short of my draw length. Just way wrong.
Yeah, I could imagine just seeing you even shooting that. You had to have been like super crunched up.
Oh, it was terrible. It was the most uncomfortable thing in the world. And I just didn't know. I just figured, whatever, that's just how it is. But then I started shooting this. I'm like, wow, I've been doing this so completely backwards for a very long time.
Well, I think we talked a lot about that during the process of making sure that you got the right draw length. And, we went into a couple different shops and we're just like, hey, can you measure him just to make sure that you get it right?
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about shooting a new bow, but there's something to be said about shooting a bow that's fitted to you correctly.
Yeah.
That's the right draw length.
Yeah.
That is the right let off for what you feel comfortable with. It's the right poundage.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of these new bows, it feels like you're driving a Ferrari.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how to shift the gears,
exactly.
you're just going to be grinding them.
Yeah.
And you're not going to maximize the potential that it has. You're not going to go near as fast as you could.
Right.
And so I think, getting you fitted the right way, because you're a 29.5-inch draw, and the other bow you were shooting was like under, what was it, like a 28 or 27.5 or something?
I think it was 27.
Okay, yeah, way short.
Yeah, like
2.5 inches. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And again, it happens to more people than you think. I think sometimes that's what people get caught up in. And I've talked to, people in the past that like are looking, or, I've had buddies that have gone into bow hunting and they're like, well, I'll just go buy a used one. I'm like, well, yeah, but you got to be careful.
Yeah.
A lot of these bows now, these mod systems, it's not like it used to be where it was like you bought the bow and the riser and the riser and the limbs were set to what it was.
Yeah.
And it was harder to adjust.
Yeah.
Now with a lot of these brands, it's a couple screws, take something out, put something in, or just adjust a screw or two, and you can adjust draw length, you can adjust the weight. The weight was always a bit adjustable, but the draw length especially.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys just go and get something and they're like, oh, okay, this is good. And it's like, well, not necessarily.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think you definitely went through that.
Oh yeah, big time. Even, this is kind of getting into it a little bit, but like, I had shot a single pin my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm shooting a 3-pin slider.
Yep.
I had shot an index release my whole life. Now I'm shooting a thumb release. It's just crazy how it just feels like I found the right recipe, kind of.
Yeah.
Like everything feels so much better now. And like I can just tell, like, I would shoot my bow a decent amount, but like, it just wasn't ever like perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would shoot and it would just like wouldn't feel quite right.
Yeah.
But now I just, that's all I want to do is shoot my bow because it just feels right and it's like so like satisfying.
Yeah, it's fun.
Like it's so fun.
Yeah.
It's a blast. But
yeah, no, I 100% agree. Yeah. And like you said, it's a huge adjustment from going from a single pin to a 3-pin or, wrist release to a thumb release.
Yeah.
It's just a whole different feel, different perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it's been fun and Cole's helped me out a lot. He gave me a lot of tips and a lot of advice on what I should do and what I should get. And it's been good. It's been a lot of fun.
And I think that's something that you're still going through.
Yeah.
Right? Like we were talking about that today.
Yeah.
That's one thing we were just talking about this morning. You shoot more of what would be considered like a high wrist.
Mm-hmm.
Your wrist is a lot straighter. The Matthews bows have that like flat grip that's more conducive to a lower wrist.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where you're more shooting it you're putting the emphasis on the bottom part of your palm rather than the top.
Yeah.
Your wrist is more broken rather than straight.
Right.
And you want to be more straight.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're going through some of it's like I said, you're just like, hey, man, I feel like I'm kind of like spraying them a little bit here.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? Like, why would that happen? And we just start talking and it's like, well, dude, like the grip that you have, it's not as conducive to a high wrist.
Yeah.
It's more conducive to that lower broken style, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, and that's the fun thing too, is there's stuff out there that you can get to try to shoot it differently.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And that's the funny thing too, is like, it's like, I can tell that I'm becoming a little bit more obsessed with it a little bit more because it's like I'm still shooting fine.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We're still talking about the fact that we're going, like there's this range in Mesa City that we have the opportunity to shoot at.
Yeah.
That's right on the edge of town. And they've got targets from 20 to 60.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just how I do it. Like I've got my sights locked in and I'm good to go. So I just instantly step out to 60.
Yeah.
And I just really feel like for me, distance allows you to see
what's going on.
Yeah. Because at 20, that little minute difference, it's kind of hard to like really distinguish like, well, is that which is just me or is it something going on? All of a sudden when I start throwing them at 60, all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay. You know, and just like what you had seen with me.
Yeah.
These Matthews bows have this, I don't want to say it wrong, but I think it's called their bridge lock.
Yep, bridge lock.
Yep. So it like goes right through the riser. Well, I shoot the Black Gold Pro sight.
Yep.
Before this phase 4, I always shot it where I just had the attachment for the bow sight on the right side of my riser.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, just the way I do things, my sight was maxed out to the left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when I started shooting, it was maxed out before. When I started shooting this phase 4, I was hitting left, just a little left.
Yeah.
And I couldn't go any farther. I felt really great about where I was anchoring, and everything that I was doing felt great. I didn't want to start adjusting all that, which could have adjusted what was going on.
Right.
So I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to switch to this bridge lock. But my point of all that to say is that when you shoot at 60, all of a sudden those little variables are just a lot more apparent. They're emphasized.
Yeah.
It's exaggerated.
Yeah.
And the farther you step out, the more you see it.
Yeah. And it was funny, like literally last night when I kind of started feeling this, like, well, I'm just going to go to 20, just kind of see like, you know, just see what's going on. And sure enough, I was just a little bit to the left, like not bad at all. Like I was like happy with the group, but it was just to the left.
Yep.
So then I went to like 40. It was just a little more to the left. And then I went to 60 and it was just a little more. So it's funny how like you said, like when you gain distance, it really magnifies like what's actually going on.
Yeah. And the thing I would say too, because I think for me, we're fortunate that we can shoot 60.
Yeah.
But that's at the range. If I'm at my house, I can't shoot 60.
Yeah.
I can shoot 20.
Yeah.
So then I would say the caveat to all that is that if you only can shoot 20, you know, it's like the old movie, The Patriot. I'll never forget that. Mel Gibson's talking to his sons and he says, aim small, miss small.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and that's what I would say that I do when I'm at my house. When we're shooting the targets, I actually bring my own target to the range and I set it up against the targets. The targets are kind of hard to pull. They're hard in your outserts. So I just have a target.
Yeah.
And I put it up in front of it. They're big circles that are the spots. My target at home, I'll take a golf tee. I'll take like a little piece of paper, or I'll take just like a little section of a leaf or anything.
Yeah.
And just stick it in there so it's a super small spot.
Yeah.
So you can still see those little variations.
Exactly.
But you just got to pick a smaller spot.
Yep.
Which is really what we should be doing in hunting as well.
Yeah.
You know, but that's something that I do if I can't shoot 60. I just try to make it a smaller spot.
Yeah.
And then I can start to see that more, because when you're picking literally just like this itty bitty little thing and you miss, you can see why.
Exactly. Yeah, just be like a little bit more hard on yourself about where your misses and whatnot, and just really try and get your group like as tight as you possibly can.
And that's what I think's fun for you. And, you know, as you're still kind of working through, you know, just, you know, it's funny, as time's gone on, I feel like I see a lot of correlations between bow hunting or shooting your bow or archery and golfing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I heard a thing a while back. I don't know which golfer it was, but he said the difference between a professional golfer and an amateur golfer is a professional golfer has a tighter V, meaning the V is your variable of when you hit off a tee box. If you're a professional golfer, your V is very narrow.
Yeah.
Your miss is very small.
Yep. Control your misses.
That's exactly right. Your variable, the window is just so small, but with an amateur golfer, I don't even know if it's considered a V. It's more like a whole sunrise.
Yeah.
It's like laying over here.
Yeah.
You know, I can hit it down the middle, but my misses are like way over here and way over here.
Yeah.
And I think that that's very applicable to bow hunting and shooting your bow. We're trying to just tighten that V. We're trying to tighten that group.
Yeah.
So your miss is just small.
Yeah.
Not so big.
Exactly.
It's great when you can zing them in there, but when you're missing by a foot, that's the ones that you're like, well, crap.
Yeah.
Because those variables in a hunting situation become emphasized.
Exactly.
And so you're just trying to hone that in smaller and smaller and tighter the best you can.
Yep.
You know, so I don't know.
Yeah. It's been fun to like be able to like really try and dial it in. Like just figure everything out.
Yep. Well, and I think it's the old adage, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah, exactly.
And the more time you spend,
exactly,
you know, as they jokingly say, behind the riser.
Yeah.
the better off you're going to be.
Right.
You know? Yep. So, but, yeah, so we were going to go through this, and you know, again, my disclaimer is I have nothing against archery shops.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just kind of funny. We had just a wild experience.
Oh man.
Which is ironic because I think as you started working in ozonics and we started shooting together, and going out to the range south of town, I think I jokingly said one day, you know, and just, you know, whatever, you know, I don't like shooting with other people.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, me neither. You know, and
I hate it.
Yeah. And it's funny because I love hunting. I love bow hunting. I love the sport of archery. I want it to grow. I want everybody to get involved in it.
Yeah.
And it's not that I have anything against anybody else. It's not that I can't shoot in front of other people. Like there's nothing in, like not in my brain that I'm like, oh, I'm nervous or I don't want them to see. I don't care.
Yeah.
But it just feels like what I notice is it gives me anxiety.
Yeah.
Because my experience has taught me that for whatever reason, when I'm around other people, things just like go wrong.
Yeah.
I've watched it happen at the range in Mason City. I've watched it happen at archery shops over and over and over.
Yeah.
You know, and and when we went and got our bows set up, that's exactly what happened.
It was pure chaos for about 20 minutes at the range.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really like made my blood pressure just like skyrocket.
Yeah.
Well, the funny part about it though, right up front was the fact that, you know, you were going round and round about, well, how many arrows do I need? You know, like, what do I need? Do I just order a dozen? You know, like, is that going to be enough? I'm like, dude, a dozen is not going to be enough. You know, I'm like, you know, maybe you're, you know, a professional 3D shooter and you're just really like zinging them in there. But I'm like, I know for me, like a dozen's never enough. Not only just because, you know, it's just not enough. You hunt with them.
Yeah.
You know, they break. It's just when you're practicing, things happen. Like it's just not going to be enough. So you got 2 dozen.
Yeah.
And you're you got your bow locked in and ready to go a little before mine did.
Yep.
And so you're back. He's the guy's like, yeah, get out, go in the back and start shooting. So you're like, heck yeah. So you're just, I mean, you're like chomping at the bit. You could see you were just gung ho to start whipping them, you know?
It was like months of waiting.
Yeah. And it had culminated, you know? You were just like, couldn't stand it anymore.
Yeah.
So you go in the back and you're like just ripping, you're ready to go. Well, I'm still in the front. They're doing some stuff. And of course I could talk to a tree. So I'm yapping along.
Well, so I'll just kind of tell what happened from my end.
Well, let me get through this part.
Okay.
So,
sorry.
So I'm yapping along. And all of a sudden, you know, Nick kind of like a smooth operator, you know, he just kind of walks back out and he's like, hey, I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's like, hey, could you come in the back? there was something I was just going to ask you about if you could see if you could like help me adjust it or something. I was like, oh yeah, sure. No problem. I looked at it. I was like, is that cool? Like he's like, yeah, man, like, don't worry about it. We're just like, I'm trying to just check timing and blah, blah. I'm like, cool. So I start walking back and I'm like, I am so literal, you know? So I'm like, oh, he wants me to check something. And I'm like gawking around, you know, we get around this corner to get back to the range and you could just see it on your face. And this backstory with this as well is that my nickname for Nick is Hot Mess. It's a super fitting nickname.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. There is multiple times a day that you just do things that are just like totally a hot mess. And you just can't help it. It's so funny. I love it. So this was the hot mess. This was hot mess number like 4 for the day. So you tell the rest of it right here. You jump in.
All right. So like Cole said, I got my bow set up a little bit before, and the guy that was the bow tech that was working on him, I was like, all right, he's like, go set it in for 20. I'm like, all right, sounds good. And me never doing this at a range or anything, you know, typically when I buy a bow, it's like used or something, so it's already kind of dialed a little bit.
Yeah.
So I just went and started shooting at 20.
You're like, okay, shoot at 20, cool. Like the pins are where it was when they came out of the box. Like that's got to be perfect.
Yeah, so I go and let one rip at 20, my very first one. Good left and right.
Yeah. Hey, left and right was perf. I'm telling you,
left and right was good. But I was like 4 feet low, and I just hammered this. There's like a piece of wood right under the target. I jammed a brand new arrow right in there. First arrow out of the bow.
Yeah.
And I walked up. I like instantly put my bow down. Luckily, at that point, there was nobody else in the range. So I hung my bow up and I like ran down there and I gave that sucker a tug like as hard as I could. And it just didn't even move an inch. I'm like, oh my God. Like, this has got to be a bad omen or something.
Yeah.
First arrow through the bow.
Like, is this really happening?
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know what to do right now. So ran over and got call.
Yeah.
And I was trying to be real secretive about it.
Yeah. So we get back there and he's like, first arrow out of the bow, jammed it in the wood, already ruined one. So I was like, just relax, hold on. So I like go straight into dad mode and I'm like, all right, let's go down there and look at it. So I look at it and it was buried. There was no way. And you like try to wiggle them a little bit, and you can like see it starting to flag. You're like, I looked, I was like, yeah. I'm like, you want to break it or you want me to break it? And you're just like, turn around like, you break it, stupid thing. He's like, only got 23 arrows now,
I'm walking back and all of a sudden I just hear crack. Like,
so then of course, I couldn't just break it normal. I had to like kick it, like karate kicked it to try to make it break as loud as possible. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. Well, and that's the thing. It was just, and that whole situation when you kind of walk it back, again, like going into dad mode, it's like, okay, let's look at this. First thing, like, how about we read the instructions? Like, but the big thing is within your housing, that Black Gold Pro sight, you're shooting a 3-pin slider. So the idea generally is that you probably shoot like a 20, 30, 40. Mm-hmm. And then when it first comes, the pins are just set pretty evenly within the housing. Yeah. So you just like picked it up and
went.
Just shot.
Yeah.
And you hadn't really adjusted anything.
Yeah.
And so we started to adjust, but even before we started to adjust the entire housing, you kind of had to make a big decision. I think this is what you've been going through, these types of steps.
Yeah.
Whether it's right or wrong, I shoot a 3-pin slider, but I like my 20 to be in the middle of the housing, in the middle of my field of view. So then my 30 and 40 fall in below that. So instead of the pins being like this, the pins are more down here like this.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah. Just so like, I mean, like for me, like I'll probably be using the 20 pin the most, like in a hunting situation.
Absolutely.
So I want that right dead center.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So then we needed to adjust the pins.
Yeah.
And then once we kind of got the 20, it's like, okay, do you like it there?
Yeah.
Or do you want it more or less, more up, more down?
Yeah.
You're like, oh no, I like it there. We kind of compared it to mine.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And then we started adjusting the housing.
Yeah.
And, started you at 10, just made sure it was close. And then it's like, okay, now let's jump out to 20 because you didn't want to end up only having like 21.
Yeah, exactly. It's about what I'm at right now.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. But yeah, that's where it got, but that was like kind of like the opening ceremonies of the craziness.
Yeah. Cause Cole goes back in and is with the bow techs and whatnot, still dialing in his bow. And, so I'm in there just shooting. And 2 more guys come in. The one guy was super helpful.
Super cool dude.
Really good shooter. Like, just you could tell that he was really good at shooting his bow. And like he was helping me out a lot with sighting it in, and he was just being really nice, and he had no reason to be that nice, so it was really cool to have him there and help me out. But then there was another guy who was in there who just had the jigaboos like I've never seen before.
Real bad.
Like super bad. Like he skipped one like off the ground. Like,
so let's define jigaboos. I always just call them jigaboos, basically meaning that when he was drawing his bow back, he wasn't feeling comfortable.
Yeah.
You could tell he was a little bit nervous, and he wasn't really pulling back into the wall. So his bow was like kind of like wanting to yip on him,
Yep.
And then he wasn't 100% comfortable with release. So then he was kind of yipping it, and he was kind of pulling it when he wasn't ready. It was set maybe too light for him or whatever.
Yeah.
It was just a lot going on.
Yeah. Like I said, like he skipped one off the ground. Pretty sure he sent one off the ceiling. Because like he was like, the one time he let go and he was like at almost a full draw, and he punched it, and so it went way high.
Yep. Like rule number 1, right? When you draw your bow, don't put your thumb or your finger on the release.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep it behind it, so when you draw, nothing can go wrong.
Happen. Yeah.
And he was basically holding his hand like right here and drawing it, and he was drawing like he was trying to shoot the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, and we're not saying all this like that, like this guy is like, oh, he's an idiot.
Yeah.
No, it's just
not
like,
at all.
I mean, I think he just didn't know. And it's like,
exactly.
And like, so when I got back there, he was I was watching him go through that too.
Yeah.
And being just how literal I am, right off the bat, he kind of looked at me and same thing, saw him skip one. And he's like, man, there's something wrong with my release.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, really? I was like, well, let's take a look at it, and I had my whole like tool kit there, my tackle box of everything for my compound bow.
Yeah.
It's like this huge, big, stupid box.
Yeah.
It's like I'm going bass fishing. It's like I got it at like Fleet Farm.
Yeah.
But, so I'm like, well, hey, let's look at it. So I'm like kind of looking at it and I'm like, man, it seems okay. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it is something wrong with it. Like the guys are in the front,
Yeah.
But he was just having a heck of a time.
Yeah.
And it's like he's skipping them here, skipping them there. And then it's like, it just kind of builds the anxiousness. It's just like, 100%. Man, this is just like a little nerve wracking.
Yeah.
without a doubt. And then while that's going on, I'm shooting at the little 10-yard just because I'm just getting back there and I knew it was going to be close, but I'm like, oh, I'll just do it the way I normally do it.
Yeah.
So I do the 10. Well, there was a girl and a father and a daughter, which was awesome. And there was a guy that was like the instructor. He was helping her. I think she was getting ready for like a fair or something. Like they did it
like
for
a 4-H deal.
Oh,
or something.
yeah. Or like, 4-H or something. They do like a shoot for 4-H. Mm-hmm. So I was like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so she's shooting and I'm shooting at the 10. Well, I draw back and I'm getting all settled on. I'm just kind of, getting ready to do my thing. And I kind of look out of my peripheral vision and here she's walking down the range. So instantly I'm like, finger off the release and I'm like, hey, excuse me. I was like, you need to go back that way, the best I can. And you could tell she felt really bad.
Yeah, she knew right away like what was going on.
Yeah, too. Yeah. She was like, oh crap. And again, the guy nobody really told her like, hey, everybody shoots on the line, and then somebody kind of yells, clear, and then everybody good, looking away, okay, good. And then everybody walks, pulls arrows.
Yeah.
She just didn't know that.
Yeah.
But it's just like, that was kind of nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And then the super cool dude.
Yeah, the guy that was helping me a lot.
Yeah, and that was like, we were strumming up conversation, super cool, like, and he was zinging them right in there. You could tell that he was the guy, kind of like we are, that just like really enjoys shooting his bow.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was a Saturday, and it was like, you know what? I'm going to shoot my bow.
Yep.
Like he just went in the shop and he was kind of BSing and hanging out and then shoot for a while. He shot, as he was shooting, you could kind of see he was shooting a very open-handed gripping style, right? Where he wasn't, and again, you don't want to strangle the dang thing.
Yeah.
But his hand was very open. Like you could see his fingers, right? Yeah. He didn't even have his hand like kind of around it. It was like very open.
Yeah.
Which is fine, right? And one of the times was, I think you and I were both just kind of fiddling and it was just right here.
Yeah.
Drew his bow back and I don't know if he hit the release or he didn't have it clipped on all the way.
My guess is he hit the button because I have the same release that he has.
Okay.
And if it's not clipped in all the way, it will not. There's no way you can pull it back. You can't put any tension on it.
Okay. And that's how most of them are, right?
Yeah.
Like the one I have is that
True
Ball Blade Pro. And literally you could take the thickness of a piece of paper.
Yeah, exactly.
And you put it on there and it will not clip, which is kind of amazing.
Yep.
That it's machined that accurately.
Yeah.
So when you clip it in, when you hear the click, it's clicked in.
It's clicked in.
You're not going to click it otherwise.
Yeah.
At first, when I first got it, I was like, stupid thing, I can't get this on here.
Yeah.
You kind of get the hang of it. But he goes to draw his bow back, and he got about 3/4 away, right where it was going to break over, and it let go.
Yeah.
And he punched himself in the face. He had his release. The release hit his face. He cut his face in a couple spots. Yeah. Well, with that open-handed release, his bow, you talk about potential energy, kinetic energy. He was about ready to turn all that potential energy into kinetic energy, and he let it go, and it turned into kinetic energy. And that bow the arrow went, I don't even know.
Yeah.
The bow just flew out of his hand.
Yeah, just like head over tea kettle.
Or just like bounce on cement.
Yeah.
You're like,
like skipped down the entire range.
Yeah.
And broke his limb.
Yeah, broke his limb. You could just see him right when he did it. He just kind of stood there like,
whoa,
what just happened? And and again, he just kind of looked at us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you okay? And you could see like the red spots of like, and it kind of started to bleed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, like you're bleeding. And he's like, oh. And then he like rubbed it. And then I was like, oh, great.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, crap. You know?
Yeah. I felt really bad for the guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it was just kind of like a lot of things going on. And then here come find out. And it's funny because it had been a long time since I'd shot my bow in a shop like that because honestly, like I had experienced stuff like that before in shops where I just like, and it just kind of got to the point where I was like, I love archery shops. Don't get me wrong. I love it. And it's awesome that there's men and women at those shops that are so talented and skilled at what they do. They can set up bows like they can.
Yeah.
And there's so many bows that come out year to year and that they can keep up with that as all this technology evolves and that they can still get it just right for the individual person is amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But it gives me anxiety when I go there and shoot in the range because just things seem like that to happen.
Yeah.
Well, and years ago, the last time I've been there, this was before Ring doorbells and felt like surveillance cameras as much. Well, here come find out, they had surveillance cameras on the walls on each way. So whether you're right-handed or left-handed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's terrible that this is what they have to do, but they went back and watched the footage.
Yeah.
They rewound the camera, and sure enough, you could see, he could tell, I think it looked like he punched a release.
Yeah. And
then the whole thing unraveled and it happened. And I don't know if it was you or me, or maybe we were just talking about that didn't a guy say that they're like, oh yeah, we have those cameras not only just so we can see what happened, but guys go back and want to test shoot brand new bows.
Exactly.
Or our demo bow.
Yeah.
And they bring it back and it's unstrung.
Yeah,
because they dry fired it and they're like, well, your bow's crap.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, let's go watch it back.
Yeah, exactly.
And then here come find out, he didn't even have an arrow on the rest.
Yeah, exactly.
Or he had it on there and he did just what that guy did or whatever. Who knows?
Right.
He accidentally tried to put it on the hook and it fell on the floor.
Yeah.
So, but it just was kind of a lot going on.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, like this all happened within like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like it was just nonstop chaos.
Yeah. You first drill one into the wood, which happens to everybody. And then
left and right was good though.
left and right was perf. Then we had the jigaboo guy that's going off the floor, off the ceiling, off the floor. Then it's the release. Then it's the bow off the floor. Then he finally goes to the front.
Yeah.
Then the girl tries to walk down the range. Then the guy somehow accidentally lets it go. Bow goes flying down range, jabs himself in the face.
Yeah.
It was funny because I could see Nick looking at me like, let's go. You know what I mean? And I was just trying to maintain. I was like, I really want to shoot my bow, but this is getting, I'm like, is this a bad omen? Like, is there bad energy in here that something else is going to happen? Like, I don't need it happening to me.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that kind of segues into like, I do end up finding myself just shooting my bow by myself a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Or with like you or like close buddies.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't know, it just seems like weird things happen when I'm around other people.
Yeah.
And like you said, that's just me. I don't know if it's right or wrong. It's just what I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's, I think, the thing that has been interesting. And I know we've been talking about this, but I want to mention it again is that it has been interesting to watch how you have changed what you did before to what you do now.
Yeah.
Because you have made some big drastic changes. You were shooting a single pin, now you're shooting a 3.
Yep.
You were shooting a wrist release, now you're shooting a thumb release. You were shooting a bow that was like 2.5 inches short on draw length. Now we went from 27 to 29.5. I don't even it'd be crazy to think about the feet per second that you've increased.
Oh, yeah.
But that was interesting. That was actually something that we had a deep discussion about at the range a few weeks ago was your draw weight.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting. And I realized that I don't think about what you were thinking about in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
I, for whatever reason, right now, the bow, the phase 4 that I'm shooting, he had it turned up. I'm shooting a Rogue string, and it's set at 68 pounds, 68.2. Mm-hmm. You were shooting, and the one day, because we are actually shooting the exact same draw length, we're both 29 inches. Yeah. So one day, just for giggles, I'm like, let me draw that thing back. So I drew it back, and it drew back like hot knife through butter, baby. I mean, It was like the smoothest thing. I was like, whoa. And you're like, what? And I was like, that's way lighter than mine. And you're like, really? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, because we have the same mods in. So
yep, 29.5-inch mods.
70-pound mods.
70-pound mods. Yes, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry. 70-pound mods at 29.5.
Yeah.
But mine are kind of cranked all the way down or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's 68.2. But yours did not feel 68.
Yeah.
And you're like, is it less? I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, well, draw mine one time. So again, not shooting it, just drawing it back. And right away you're like, oh man, I don't like that.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like, what do you mean you don't like it? You're like, geez, that draws way tougher than mine does.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it's a bit more weight. Well, I have a little bow scale, a little digital handheld scale by Last Chance Archery, little red deal. It's pretty sweet. It doubles as my turkey weigh-in.
Yeah.
When we get back to the truck.
Turkey scale.
Yeah, I keep it in my center console all year
Yeah.
round. It's funny how often you actually weigh stuff. I don't know if that's just how I am, but I'm like, even today we're like, I wonder how much my bow weighs. Should we get the Last Chance scale? But so we pulled them back. 68.2. Yours was set at 60.2.
61.2.
61.2. Sorry. But the interesting thing of this whole, what I'm trying to get at is that as we talked, I could tell that you really were kind of mentally on the idea of you naturally kind of gravitated towards how the bow drew.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like, for me, it's like kind of like a peace of mind thing.
Yep.
Like if I can like get the bow back real nice and easy.
Yep.
Really settle in, like it just everything, the entire shot process just feels a lot better to me.
And there's truth in that.
Yeah.
There's absolutely truth in that.
Yeah.
You know, from my perspective, I was like, I agree with you, but to play devil's advocate, I mean, in a very extreme circumstance, I don't care if it draws like I'm holding a jackhammer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried about how the bow shoots, because drawing the bow isn't what's making the arrow go through the deer. You know what I mean? So I'm more concerned, not as much about the draw, I'm more concerned about the shot.
Yeah.
You know, and so I was like, well, maybe just think about it, maybe turn it up a little bit. Like you're like basically Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, I'm pretty strong.
You're like super fit.
It's not a big deal, but
So it was like, well, hey, you could pull back more weight.
yeah.
And you're like, yeah, maybe I guess I probably could. I'm like, you definitely could. So you ended up, after a couple days of discussion and just how many mind-numbing conversations, just like beating my head against. No, I'm just kidding. You ended up turning it up a full turn.
Yeah, I think I'm at 66 now.
Yep, 65.8.
You always round up.
It was 65.8.
66.
65.8. But the interesting thing is, you know, as we went through that discussion, it's like, well, why should I or shouldn't I turn it up? Like, well, if you have it at 60-ish, it's going to draw like a dream.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could definitely hold more weight. You're going to gain some speed, you know, and like we talked about, it's like if an arrow goes from here to here at this speed and it's a little bit off, if you crank it up, even if you're that off, it's going to get there faster, which you would think is going to tighten up your groups.
Yeah.
But also sometimes when you turn your bow up, it can hinder accuracy because it's more weight.
Yeah.
There's just more weight that you're holding, you know, and that's why target archers don't shoot 70-pound bows.
Yeah.
They shoot 48, 55 or whatever they shoot way less weight.
Right.
And so, you know, you ended up turning it up to 65.8 and
66.
And, you know, you're definitely really liking it.
Yeah. I don't mind it at all either.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that made it easier is I think my overall form is better when I draw than it was at the beginning. Because right away, I think it was at like 67 or something, or 68. And I drew it back at the shop. And I'm like, can you turn it down just a little bit more? Just so I'm more comfortable.
Yep.
But now, I mean, I don't even notice too much of a difference between when it was at whatever it was, 61 or whatever, to now where I'm at now. Like it feels pretty similar. And I think it's just because, you know, my form is getting better just from shooting more, honestly.
Yep. And like I said, as we were going through that discussion when all that happened, I was really playing devil's advocate on the whole conversation, because my perspective came from the fact that for 10 plus years, I shot a recurve at 50 pounds and just ripped through deer with arrows at 50, you know, shooting a bow at 50 pounds. So I was like, you don't really need the weight. I mean, heck, the first time I went to Alaska moose hunting, that first time I shot that triax at 60 pounds.
Yeah.
And very effectively killed a moose and buried it.
Yeah.
Didn't think twice.
Yeah.
You know, and so do you need all that extra weight? I don't know. I mean, and like we kind of got down to, it's like, well, you're definitely leaving some gas in the tank.
Yeah.
You're leaving some potential gain in energy there, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, heck, Matthews makes a 75-pound mod.
Yeah.
You hear of guys, I mean, I have a friend that shoots way up there on weight.
Yeah.
You know, is it right or wrong? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just what they're doing.
Once again, it all kind of comes down to preference.
Exactly. And even like, you know, you think about even when we did when you were at 60.8 and you got now to 65.8, and when I was at 68.2 the whole time, that little scale shows peak and hold.
Mm-hmm.
And my hold weight was like
4 pounds, I think.
4 pounds, and yours was like 3.2.
Yeah.
So the hold was, you know, and that's where I really came to. It's like, okay, you're really doing this because you enjoy the draw.
Yeah.
And how that kind of, when you first set up, how that makes you feel.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that as much.
Yeah.
I'm worried about when I shoot and how does it feel then, and what is it doing when the arrow is going down range? Because that to me is what really makes all the difference.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and I think that's why some guys go more weight, because then all of a sudden they just have that much more oomph in that arrow.
Yeah, exactly.
When it's getting there.
Yeah.
Getting there faster.
Right.
So yeah, so that's been really interesting.
Yeah.
And like we talked about earlier, I tend to shoot farther at the range. You know, I tend to we shoot 60. When there's nobody there, when we go at lunchtime, just hasn't worked out yet much, but like I usually will go out to 80, 70, 80, 90, 100, just mark them in the grass and really, really start launching them.
Yeah.
Again, when you shoot that 60, 70, 80, and then all of a sudden you go back to 20, 30, 40, it feels like the target's like right here in front of your face.
At my house in Wisconsin, I could shoot out to 150 yards probably if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been going back to 100 and shooting, and holy crap, it's so fun.
Yeah.
It's literally like, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Like, it's just insane to think that, you know, we run the 3-pin sliders. It's the same that you can slide the pin down and have a pin for 100.
Yep.
Like it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I think the thing that when I first started shooting farther like that, like 70, 80, 90, 100, what I noticed right off the bat is I tend to, and I have to consciously think about this, but when I shoot at 20 and 30, especially the compound, the arrow gets there so dang fast.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so fast that it's hard to see it. You know what I mean? Like you don't hardly see it when it's in the air.
Yeah.
I shoot these fire knocks that I have practiced. He calls them target knocks that light up and then they shut off after a little bit. So I can see my arrow kind of flying now. Yeah. But my point is when I shoot at 20 and 30, I tend to react.
Yeah.
Because when it hits the target, like I tend to move, you know what I mean? And I have to consciously keep everything in line and just hold my form. But at 100, you let it go and you've got a couple seconds where that thing's just sailing.
Yeah.
And you can shoot and hold your form and the arrow is still in the air.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what's nice about that farther distances is it really helps you be aware of your form. And it really made me realize that I was kind of reacting to the arrow hitting the target at closer distances because everything just happens that much quicker. We're just kind of like, okay, on to the next shot.
Yeah.
Rather than really just like when you're shooting at 100, you let it go and it's just going, bink, you know? So I think that's been kind of fun too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I honestly feel like I almost shoot better at farther distances. I think I just like almost like get into like a different like mindset. Like I almost focus a little bit more when it's farther away. Like when I'm at 20, especially after shooting far and it feels so close. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I just feel like I'm like, I'll just rip it back and shoot. But
really?
But like when I'm at 60, I like feel myself like really like trying to focus a lot more, which is probably not good. But
yeah. You know, I think that's one of the differences between you and me as well with practicing is, you know, you have been so gung-ho. Mm-hmm. You know, right off bat, that first day, you're like, I'm shooting 1,000 arrows. And I was like, how about we go for like 20? You know, like, how about we just try for a dozen good ones, you know? And that's where I think it's changed for me. I try to feel like we got the bows during the winter, and I am kind of a dork about I didn't want to switch before turkey season.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I have my setup. If it's not broke, why fix it? It was super good. It was really, really zinging them in there. So I didn't want to like go and just like all of a sudden just go, oh, new bow, redo everything. I want to put the laps in, you know? So I waited till after turkey season. As soon as turkey season over, we're like, boom, let's go get these set up. So it's been this late spring and summer. So I kind of feel like what I try to do is I try to ease into it, you know? And I really focus on quality rather than quantity, because I have a tendency, if I start to shoot a lot, when I start to get tired, that's when the bad habits start. That's when the groups start to widen, the variables start to come in. And then I love to shoot my bow, so I try not to get too frustrated or mad, because I love shoot my bow and I don't want it to be like that. So I try to just keep that mindset. But I would much rather shoot for quality than quantity.
Yeah.
And so when I start, I mean, you'll see me, I'm like, I'll shoot a dozen arrows and be like, but I try to shoot a dozen good ones.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, okay, let's go. And you would stay there for another hour.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of different ways of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
and it's funny too. Like like when I go home this weekend, I'm going to be shooting so much.
Yeah.
And like, I don't really get that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like I can shoot a lot and like, I don't feel any change. I mean, I do get to a point where I'm like, okay, I should probably stop now.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I just feel like I could stay out there forever.
Yeah.
And just sling.
Yeah. No, and that's awesome. Like I said, and I mean, I could shoot more than I do too.
Right. Yeah.
We're trying to be conscious
for sure.
Conscious about like not being out there for 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. It is during our lunch break. So.
Yeah, it's like a lunch break. So by the time we get out there and come back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just really try to focus on, because for me, what I've really started to gravitate towards the last couple of years is that my practice is meant to help me get ready to be hunting.
Yep.
And when I'm hunting, I'm not shooting 50 arrows. I'm shooting one. And so I'm trying to really just mentally get in the idea of, I would really want to make that count.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep, without a doubt.
Yep. And so, and that's just where you and I are different. I have the tendency where if I shoot a ton, I can tell that my form starts to kind of wane.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't think I can handle the weight and everything else.
Right. No,
it's just that I just kind of go for that quality.
Yeah. Yep.
One of the other things to mention is that, you know, we're talking about how we both kind of have different perspectives. I've been shooting a compound bow now for a while, and it's, you know, the differences from year to year are incrementally better. But for you, coming from what you were shooting before, it's like, you were driving a Ford Tempo, now you're driving a Ferrari. You know, so every time you get in, you're like, woo-hoo-hoo! You know, and I'm like, oh, I feel a little bit of lag between second and third. You're like, lag? You know what I mean? Like, you're like, I'm already in fifth. You know what I mean? You're just like, you know, you're just like ripping, you know? But the funny thing too about it is that you and I are shooting very similar setups, but man, they could in a lot of ways be so different.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, you know, I think this is what guys do, you know, like, we are the most influenced by the people, our buddies and friends that are around us, right?
Yeah.
We trust them, you know, and for some crazy reason, you trust me. No. But so, you know, when you were looking at getting a bow, you're like, what do you think? What are you shooting? What do you like? What works?
I was getting the phase 4 all day long.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that we all kind of like, we all tend to do that. We all ask around.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you think about this? Hey, what sight are you shooting? Hey, what arrows you got? What broadheads? Why do you like them? Mm-hmm. And then we take that and digest it and analyze it and say, okay, do I like that? Do I want to do that? You know? And so I think it's interesting now. And again, I'm looking over here because our bows are sitting up here in the corner, just how similar, but how different they are.
Yeah.
So to kind of go through the similarities, we're both shooting Matthews Phase 4 29s. We're both shooting them at 29 and a half inches.
Yep.
Both with 70-pound mods.
Yep.
Both using black gold pro sights.
Yep.
Both using QAD, the integrated dovetail.
Yep.
Rest. But after that, nothing's the same.
Like not even close to the same.
Yep. After that, the road gets very far apart.
Completely split.
Yep. Yep.
Like, it's actually really crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird to think about.
Well, and I think that's what's so fun about bow hunting is that you can do so many things differently. You can make it so unique to your own. And I kind of feel like my bow is very mine. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's one of a kind, but
probably not.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it is.
You know, but it's just, you know, it's just very different than what
Yeah.
I kind of feel like your setup is more kind of like the standard,
Basic.
not basic, but like the kind of like if you're going to go to an archery shop and you're going to buy a bow and you're going to buy a quiver and you're going to buy all this and all that, like that's kind of what you would kind of grab all that and pile it together.
Right.
Where I'm like way off in the boonies.
Yeah.
But it's not one's right and wrong.
Well, it's like we keep saying, I think it's all preference. Like if it works for you, then shoot it.
Yep, exactly. So where the differences lie is, right off the bat, you shoot a normal, we're both right-handed, you shoot your quiver where it's the hood up here and your arrows, you put your arrows up in and your veins are down here.
Yep.
I actually shoot a left-handed quiver. So I shoot my quiver upside down.
Yeah.
I like the way that balances my bow better.
Yeah.
So I shoot my quiver upside down. So a lot of people are really like, what's wrong with that? They look at it.
Yeah.
I kind of joked with the guys when we got it set up. I'm like, I know it's a left-handed quiver. And they're like, oh no, man. Like the guy was like, we're actually seeing that a lot more. I was like, huh, okay. But yeah, so I shoot my quiver upside down. It's still on the right side of the bow. It's just a left-handed quiver.
So it makes it upside down.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I shoot a upside down quiver. You shoot your quiver right side up. I'm a dork about when I hunt, I have a 6 arrow quiver, but I only carry 4. Mm-hmm. When I practice, I only have 3 because when I'm hunting, I only have 3 in the quiver and I have 1 on the bow. Yep. So that to me is exactly what it's going to be like. You walk around with 6 arrows in your quiver all the time and 1 on the string. Yep. So it's just
5 arrows, 1 on the string. When I've been shooting, I've only had 5 arrows in there.
Okay. There's 6 right now.
I know I put it in there because I'm not shooting it right now.
Oh, got it. Okay. So we're a little different in that regard. Bull shooting, the black gold sights are both 3-pin sliders. You're both shooting a 0.19, then a 0.1.1.
Yep.
20, 30, 40. Both shooting the bridge lock within the black gold pro sight. You're shooting the standard Matthews string. I'm shooting a Rogue R21 string. Yep. Another big difference is you shoot a peep sight. I shoot an anchor sight, so I don't have a peep. It's funny, that actually becomes a big topic when I'm around people because they look at it, they're like, do you have a scope on your bow? And it's not a scope. It's kind of hard to describe, but I first heard about this anchor sight years ago, and it's a kind of a whole different way of doing things. The idea behind it is that when you shoot an anchor sight, when you shoot a normal peep, when you draw the bow back, you line up your peep with the housing of your sight, and they basically kind of overlap each other. And that's how you know that you're limiting that variable, and that's kind of part of your anchoring, your anchoring setup. Mm-hmm. But what I do is when I draw my bow back, I don't have a peep. So what I do is there's this glass tube, and at the end of the tube there's a black dot. Well, in my sight there's a red circle. The end of it is a black dot and little crosshairs. And when I hold the ball in front of me and when I draw it back, that red circle lines up with the black dot and does the same principle as what a peep sight does.
Right.
What I've noticed over these last few years is that if you torque your bow at all, you see it right now. Mm-hmm. That anchor sight, when you line that up, if you torque your bow at all or your grip is not right, it will boom, it just goes off. Where with a peep sight, a lot of times there can be a little bit more variability.
Right.
A lot of guys will combat that on peep sights by shooting smaller peeps because it makes that difference tighter. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So again, the other thing for me is I really don't like looking through a peep for whatever reason. That just doesn't. And I think part of that is the fact that I was a recurve shooter by trade before. You know what I mean? That was really where I cut my teeth. So I like having both my eyes open.
Right.
I still shoot with my left eye closed, but I have my right eye completely open. And for some reason, that looking through a peep really bothered me. And that's when the guys at the shop suggested, maybe you should think about this anchor sight. And I never knew anything about it. It's a little bit harder to set up. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy.
Right.
But the other thing that I would say that's been the big advantage for me with that anchor sight is a lot of people don't think about the fact that you look at a peep and it's like an aperture on a camera. An aperture is the amount of light will affect your depth of field in the lens, but how that translates into the lens is the aperture gets smaller and bigger.
Right.
So a lower aperture number means a bigger, it's open. The larger the aperture number, it gets that much smaller. When you start to neck it down, that's the amount of light that's actually coming into the lens.
Yep.
And so same thing with a peep. So when you shoot a quarter size peep, you're letting a certain amount of light through.
Right.
To create more accuracy, guys shoot smaller peeps to less variable, but then it lets light through.
Yeah.
So where that really ends up making a heck of a difference is in low light situations. Well, guess when deer walk out? First thing in the morning at last light. And so the nice thing for me is that in those situations, my eye is completely open. Mm-hmm. I'm not necking it down through that peep where you can look around normally and you're like, oh, okay, if I had a peep, I would draw that bow back and all of a sudden it's just like it gets way darker. Mm-hmm. Well, that's why.
Yeah.
With an anchor sight, your eye is completely open. Now you're still that glass tube, it can get harder to see in low light. At the end of it, it's like that. It's like some sort of like that glow material. So it'll still looks a little bright. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's been interesting. I would say the drawback to it is, you got to be a little careful with it, right? You just can't like throw your bow on the ground. If it gets bumped, you can knock it off.
Right.
I've shot that anchor sight when I went to Alaska. You got to be a little bit more friendly with it with water. If it gets wet, if it's really, 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 we're talking like torrential rain for 7 days like it did on me my first moose hunt.
Yeah.
There was times that it got a little frustrating. I was like, crap, there's water in it. I was having to kind of try to dry it out.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I really liked it.
Yeah.
And I think it's helped me become more accurate. Mm-hmm. If I'm trying to follow a deer, I have to really be thinking about my form because I'll notice my anchor sight will move if I'm trying to follow on a deer or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's been kind of different. And then the other big thing that's different about our bows is I've been working with a guy named Dorge at Fire Knock, and he does this titanium kit upgrade to all the bolts and components on the bow.
Yep.
And the big thing about titanium compared to like aluminum or steel is that it's the dampening properties, the vibration, sound, it's just so much less than steel. So I've gone to that whole titanium setup in the bow. I feel like it lightens it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I also shoot this. He calls it an arrow bump. It's the string. It's the string
dampener.
String dampener. I took the factory one off and I put this titanium one on, and it just makes it even more dead in the hand. Mm-hmm. So when you look at them, they just look very, very different.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. It's just cool to know that, like, yes, we're shooting the same bow, but you can do whatever the heck you want to it.
Yeah. After that, it's
and still shoot very good.
Yeah.
It's cool that you have that freedom.
Yep, absolutely. And that's what I think is fun too, is when you get online or you're at a 3D shoot or whatever it might be, man, you can see everything under the sun.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the big difference too, is I don't shoot any stabilizers.
Yeah.
You shoot a front stabilizer and
back bar.
A back bar.
Mm-hmm.
When you hold your bow compared to mine, yours is a lot heavier.
Yeah.
But yours is a lot steadier.
Yeah.
In a windy condition, like you can really just like boom.
Yeah.
And mine will kind of have a tendency,
Yeah.
Yours is a bit more to hold in your hand when you're holding it out. Mine just kind of feels like a feather.
Yeah.
So some people like that, some people don't. I do. I don't like all the extra to carry around.
Right.
It just weighs you down.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's been really, really fun and again, like at the end of the day, the arrows end up zinging in there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I think that's kind of the moral of the story for me in this conversation is that, and I think I've appreciated in watching how you have been very open-minded in being willing to try different things within this whole process of getting your bow set up.
Yeah.
Because you definitely, even with the fact that you shot what you shot before, you still had what you did before and it worked for you. You shot deer.
Yeah.
So, but comparatively to that setup, you've had to you've kind of gone completely different direction.
Yeah.
And that does, that can be hard to do.
Yeah.
I have the tendency to be the guy that's like, if it's not broke, why fix it?
Yeah.
Like I was like, I kind of had a Nick Hot Mess moment about the whole of, am I going to move my sight, my Black Gold Pro sight? Am I going to take it off the normal factory bar, put it on the bridge lock bar, and am I going to move that over? Knowing that it was going to have to make me adjust my anchor sight just the way it was bolted together. And I was like, oh gosh, do I want to do that?
Yeah.
It's like I'm a little left, and I knew that's what I need to do, right? The right thing to do is usually the hard thing to do.
Yeah.
The easy thing to do is usually the wrong thing to do. I knew it was the right thing to do. But again, I get the tendency to be like, well, it's not broke, why fix it?
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's hard to be open-minded.
Yeah.
And I feel like you have done a really good job of that.
Yeah.
And it's starting to really translate in what you're doing. And you're still in the midst of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? With talking about your wrist and having to work through that.
Yeah.
And it just keeps honing that in more and more and more.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's a good transition into kind of a whole nother dimension of this for me, especially the last few years. Because what we're talking about with getting the bow set up and taking the time to shoot and going to the range and shooting far or making a small spot and shooting close and just shooting. I've been doing a lot of that. Again, I'm not a 3D archer. I don't go to 3D shoots on the weekends, but I feel like I shoot my bow a lot. Some weeks it doesn't work out. Like this week, every time we went out there for lunch, there was, and it's awesome. They had a youth event there, right?
Exactly.
It's like, and it's like super cool. You're like, heck yeah. And there's like, they got all these targets set up, but that's during our lunch break. So, and I'm busy at night, married, 5 kids.
Yep.
I just can't find the time, or make the time or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So there's some weeks I just can't get as many shots in. But I feel like when I look at the whole season, when I look at the winter, spring, summer, I get my shots in.
Yeah.
I get the practice in that I'm confident with the bow. But I feel like what I started to realize is that I was becoming very good I was getting really good at shooting my bow, but sometimes that wasn't always translate into killing deer.
Right.
And I think what I started to realize is that I needed to start to think about the actual act of shooting my bow at a deer and what I was mentally and physically going through as much as I was about what I was doing in the summer.
Yeah.
And when I started to think about the hunting situations and actually shooting my bow at a deer, it started to change the way my perspective of when I was hunting.
Yeah.
I heard a thing a while back, and I'm actually writing an article about this right now just because I enjoy writing.
Yeah.
Think about bow hunting like we talked about, or like golfing. Mm-hmm. If you think about golfing, if you go out and play 18 holes of golf, I'm a terrible golfer. I enjoy golfing, but I'm not very good, which is why I'm not golfing with you, because I'm pretty sure you're going to whoop me, and I'm not going to have it. But not a very good golfer. So if I went and played 18 holes, I'm probably going to shoot, let's just say I'm going to shoot an even 100. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay? So if it takes me 4 hours to golf 18 holes, golf 100, it took me 4 hours. But if you really narrow down the actual act of swinging a golf club and actually golfing, if you would actually think about it, and when I had this realization, I literally just stood there and I was like, how long does it take? And I was like, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. It was like 2 seconds. Well, 2 seconds times 100, you spend a couple minutes actually golfing.
Yeah.
It takes you 4 hours. There's a lot of extra time in there.
Yeah.
And what you do in the rest of the time is you just do a lot of thinking about golfing.
Right.
Right? There's a mental game that's being played.
Yep.
Whether you're having a good day or, like me, mostly bad days, the previous shot affects this shot, which then affects the next shot.
Yeah.
You don't actually spend a lot of time golfing, and that's a lot like hunting. I spend 365 days a year thinking about hunting.
Yeah.
But if I really started to break it down, I probably spend, let's just make up a number, let's say 365 hours actually hunting, which would equate to about 15, 24-hour periods. So let's say that, just for discussion's sake, it goes from 365 days to 365 hours, which would equal 15, 24-hour days, which then it would equal, let's say, 3 hunts within that. So that's 15, 30, 45. So there's actually 45 hunts But then within that, you break it down even farther, you probably only actually spend 365 seconds or less, which would equal a couple minutes of actually in the act of shooting your bow.
Yeah.
And to break it down even further, you probably only spend a handful of seconds where you're actually at full draw bearing down on a deer per year.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy when you just really start to think about that.
Yeah.
And so for me, what I've started to do is I've spent as much time analyzing and thinking about not only my practicing and what I'm doing, but I'm thinking about how I work through that actual moment when I'm shooting at a deer.
Definitely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, without a doubt.
And I think you and I have had a lot of discussions about this. One of the things that when I really started to, one of the things I asked myself right off the bat, I was like, well, what's the difference? Like, why is it different? Like when I'm standing at the range and when I'm out in a tree stand.
Exactly.
And the number one thing that I came up with is pressure.
Yep.
There is a different level of pressure.
Oh yeah.
When you're shooting your bow at the range or you're shooting in your backyard and when you're shooting in a tree stand.
Yep.
There's a different level of pressure.
Oh yeah.
And so what I started to do right up front is I was like, okay, well, how do I create that pressure within my practice? Mm-hmm. How can I do it? And so I've kind of gone through a rigmarole of different ways that I've done that. One of the things that I did years ago, and I had seen it done in other situations, was you can create that pressure by just take an old garden hose and wrap it around a tree a bunch of times, put a small little bucket or something at the bottom and then cut a couple holes in the hose and drop a marble in the top of the hose or any of the other sections.
Yeah.
And it's going to go around and I would have to knock an arrow, draw it back and shoot before it hit the bucket.
Yeah.
And so, man, you want to talk about creating pressure.
Yeah.
You can just feel your heart like skyrocket because you're all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Exactly like a hunting situation.
Yep.
I think in a hunting situation, what I realized is that the pressure was speeding everything up.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out a way to try to slow it down.
Yeah.
And when you do this type of hose around the tree, you feel everything speeding up. Okay, oh my gosh, I got to knock an arrow. Oh my gosh, I got to draw back. Okay, shoot.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah, exactly.
When I used to guide, I always would say to people, man, you've got one more second.
Yeah.
Like you've got more time than you think.
Which is an eternity too.
And just take an extra second. Yeah. Like you feel like when that elk or mule deer turns and he takes that extra step, he's going to walk out of your life.
Yeah.
Just take one more second.
Yeah.
And so initially I used to do this with the kids. Like Bobo would go out there with me and I'd have different holes in the hose.
Yeah.
I would say, drop it in whichever one you want. Don't tell me. Well, then that even plays more mind games,
exactly.
right? Because then you don't know if it's going to roll a bunch or a little.
Yeah.
So I would do that. But then it's funny where it really, for me, where this really became an epiphany and where I felt like I really where I started to see big gains in this is, dude, I'll never forget it. One time she dropped the marble in and I was like, okay, knock an arrow. Okay, drop back. And I'm thinking, okay, I can like hear my brain thinking about the hose. And I was like, I'm sitting there at full draw and I'm like, you know what? No, like I'm going to shoot when I want to. And if it hits the bucket before it goes, then I'm just going to let it down.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I realized like I was controlling the situation.
Yeah.
I was in charge, not my brain.
Yeah.
I was in charge. It wasn't deciding when I was going to let it go. I was deciding.
Right.
And I think what I just described there that's kind of a redneck way of describing target panic.
Yeah.
We all feel like you get drawn back and your brain says you have to shoot this arrow. Mm-hmm. You've got to shoot it right now. It doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah.
You can choose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, like you've seen me at the range where I'll draw back and the wind will grab me and it'll just push me way over here. And I'm like, oh, gal. And I bring it back and then I'll just go, no, let it down, take my release off and go, I'm starting over.
Yeah.
And I choose to let it go.
Right. Exactly.
So I think that's a great way to try to create that pressure. I'll tell you what, the other fun thing is, you and I have been talking about this. Make it a competition when you're shooting with your friends. You were trying to figure that out the other day. It's like, okay, let's make it a competition that we can keep score for weeks on, at a time. I'll make rules. You were like all over it, you know?
Yeah. It'd be so fun to have a daily,
Look, you're going straight into it.
daily. So you have your daily wins, and then you keep track of total points scored throughout the year. It'd be awesome.
Sometimes, dude, you go straight Sheldon Cooper. You know how, like the movie Big Bang Theory, Sheldon Cooper likes a good contract. You like a good, game and set of rules.
Yes.
That'd
be awesome.
Sanctioned games.
Then we could have a big poster, and every single day we write down who won, points, and then we add up the points at the end of the year. So we'll have a weekly winner and a yearly winner.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it, like I said, making it a competition.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I would say is, man, get $5 worth of ones and throw $1 down for every 3 shots.
Right.
And whichever 3 are the closest, like, gets to pick up the $1 when they come back.
Yeah.
Do it with $10, $10 worth of ones. And then all of a sudden you might walk away with, 7, 8 extra bucks or lose 7 or 8 extra bucks,
Yep.
So I think if there's ways that you can create that pressure, the other thing that I started to realize is, again, not only the pressure and working through, that kind of anticipation and controlling that. And, you heard me this spring. So when I shot a recurve bow, it was always, my mantra was pick a spot. I just literally just pick a hair. Now my mantra is take one more second. When I get to full draw and I'm burying that pin down, just take one more second. I think about when I guided, hey man, you got an extra second.
Yeah.
Just really be present. I always remember as a younger person when I was shooting my bow, after you shot, I would be like, oh man, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything. Where'd you hit? I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
I want to, now it's gotten to the point for me where I will look at a deer as it walks in and I will think about like forward, back, watching its shoulder go forward and back, forward and back. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just so that I am really, I am present in what's happening. I'm not worrying about the marble rolling down the hose, hitting the bottom of the bucket.
Yeah.
When I get to full draw, I am deciding when I want to let that arrow go. And that's sometimes easier said than done.
Oh, without a doubt.
But I feel like me thinking about that in practice has really started to help me translate that into hunting.
Definitely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. When you're talking about pressure and whatnot, I wanted to say that one of the things that I do for pressure, or that I just did, was I shot in a 3D tournament.
Absolutely.
And it was really crazy because I ended up shooting by myself throughout it. It was 30 targets or whatever, but I was by myself the entire time. And you would think that it would be just like you're shooting at the range, but like it was crazy. Like I definitely felt way more pressure. I even felt a little bit of adrenaline. Like I don't know why. Like it was just crazy, but and so I feel like that's something that I'm gonna do a lot more because I had an absolute blast. Like it was super cool. Like going through the woods and just shooting different ranges, shooting different even targets. It was a ton of fun. But it made me feel more in the moment, and it really, I feel like doing that more will help in the situation of actually shooting a deer. Just because like I said, like I did feel pressure and I did feel adrenaline, not nearly as much, obviously, but like I just felt myself having to focus like a lot more and just like really hone in on like what I was aiming at and what I was shooting.
The thing I would say too to what you just described there about 3D shoots is one of the problems, the big difference between practicing and hunting is that, in a hunting situation, it's not like practicing most of the time.
Yeah.
Hunting compared to practice feels way outside of your element.
Yeah.
And what you just described there is exactly that. When you go to a 3D shoot and you're getting yourself outside your element.
Yeah, definitely.
They put you in awkward situations.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I've been at 3D shoots where they were like, you've got to put your left foot on that chair.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? And all of a sudden you're sitting, I'm like you're standing with one foot up here and one foot down here and your balance is off. We go to Idaho. We're not going to be standing on flat ground on a gravel with the 2 little makeshift spots where we put our feet every single time.
Yeah. And what you're shooting at is standing exactly level with you broadside.
Exactly. Dude, I'll never forget the first time well, not the first time I went elk hunting, but I had an opportunity to miss an elk, shoot at it with my recurve. When I shot at that bull, I was standing behind a huge boulder that was bigger than me. I could barely see over it. I saw the bull coming. Literally, dude, I swear to God, the shot was like this. That was the angle. I shot right underneath of it. And I walked up, I found my arrow, and I pulled it out, and I went back, and I found my brother-in-law, Justin, and he's like, all excited. He's like, what happened? And I was like, and we just sat there, and I'm like, I didn't prepare for that. You know what I mean? Like, it literally, dude, I'll never forget, it was this steep.
Yeah. Well, that was it. Like,
how can I do that around here?
Yeah.
You know, our biggest hill's an overpass. I can't find a 40, 60% grade and shoot straight up it.
Yeah.
I think that's why these total archery challenges and the Reinhardt 100s and all that have become so popular.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're really putting you outside the element, outside of your element. And those 3D shoots, that is so great. You know what I mean? And that's, like you said, they're great for that.
Yeah.
And it's mentally preparing you for those hunting situations.
Yeah, and it's like there was a 3D carp floating in the river that you had to shoot, and like that alone is like, holy crap! Like you have to hit that target or else your arrow's just gone. It's gonna be in the river.
Yeah.
And then, like you said too, like I remember the last 29 30, they were way above, and you were shooting way high, and I'm like, this is weird, but it's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah.
No, it was a lot of fun.
Yep.
So
you're absolutely right, and I would say. The other little tidbit that I would say there is, I don't go to a lot of 3D shoots, partly because it's hard to take the time on a weekend and be away from the kids and blah. But I do try to recreate that stuff as often as I can.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? Like, even if that's during turkey season, or you're getting ready for turkey season, I mean, when I was shooting in my yard before turkey season, because the archery course was snowed in, I take a chair and I put it out in the yard. Because I'm not standing.
Yeah, you're sitting.
I'm sitting.
Yeah.
So I try to recreate that.
Yeah.
Or just, so I think that, yeah, dude, that's huge, is just putting yourself outside your element, trying to figure out a way to recreate that adrenaline, recreate that pressure, that anticipation. Doing that in your practice is going to translate and help you during your hunting.
Exactly.
Yep. The other thing that I've really started to work through when it comes to my practicing and hunting is adrenaline. Man, I love adrenaline.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah.
I haven't had adrenaline dump in a while. The closest thing I had to an adrenaline dump was the other day when we went to those dirt track races.
Yeah.
Oh, baby. I was all fired up.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to throw you through that fence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was excited. I was shouldering you like I was trying to tackle you, dude.
Yeah.
I could tell. I was like, yeah. You know what I mean? I could just like feel it. I'm like, oh yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. I love the adrenaline.
Yeah.
We all do.
Yeah.
That's why we do this. You talk to your friends and family that don't hunt.
Yeah.
Great example, Zip. Zip looks at you and goes, why do you like to fish so much? They all look the same. And you like to fish because you do your little stance and then you and right there, it dumps.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're just like, you just live for that.
Yeah.
You can't explain that to Zip because he just is like, what?
Yeah. Right.
And that's why we do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. Yep.
But part of the problem is that, well, dude, turkey season is a perfect example. When I shoot stuff, I come unglued.
Yeah.
That's going through me before the shot.
Right.
But I come unglued.
Yeah.
The adrenaline just like hammers through me. I've seen that in Jet.
Yeah.
Yeah. He shot that turkey this year and he was like, oh.
Yeah.
And I actually got on my phone and like, does adrenaline run through little kids? I didn't even know. I'm like, must,
Yeah.
Because he was jacked up.
Yeah.
But that adrenaline started to negatively affect me. Because I wasn't staying present. I wasn't aware what was going on. I wasn't thinking about that doe's shoulder going forward and back.
Yeah.
I wasn't concentrating and thinking, take one more second.
Yeah.
The adrenaline was controlling me.
Yeah.
So I actually ended up on the internet, dude, and I found sniper breathing exercises. So now what I do, the minute I feel that adrenaline dump, is I breathe through my nose for 4 seconds, I hold my breath for 2, and I breathe back out for 4.
Yeah.
And I do that. And usually 4 or 5 rounds of that, and my heart rate goes back to normal.
Yeah.
I still feel the adrenaline, but it's almost like if the adrenaline was a knife edge, and when I do those breathing exercises, I was kind of running my finger on the edge of the knife before I do the breathing exercises, and all of a sudden I'm like, now I'm just holding a really, really sharp knife.
Yeah.
Like, watch out, bro.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's been something that has really worked for me, dude. I'm telling you, you should try that.
Yeah.
I mean, I did it during turkey season.
Right.
I'm sitting there breathing in, holding my breath, breathing out. And once I take off the edge of that adrenaline and it's still there, dude, I feel like it hones my senses.
Yeah.
You can take advantage of it.
Right.
Or it can like totally blow you up.
Yeah, exactly.
I have found it very hard to recreate that in practice.
Yeah.
The best thing that I've done is, dude, burpees, jumping jacks, running in place. And then when I get my heart rate up, shoot my bow.
Right.
You know, that's the only thing that I've even been close to being able to recreate
Yeah.
that type of adrenaline. Because I can't just instantly go, hey, brain, dump adrenaline.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The other thing that I've really started to realize, and I don't think I would have been able to get to this point if I didn't work through the pressure, if I didn't work through the sense of anticipation, if I didn't work through the adrenaline dump.
Yeah.
What all those things kind of uncovered for me was still these nerves, almost like it was nerve-wracking. Do you follow me? And what I mean by that is that shooting your bow inherently isn't nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But what becomes nerve-wracking is when you start to think about the consequence of shooting your bow.
Right.
When all of a sudden, you know, shooting your bow becomes bigger than just that shot.
Yeah.
When it becomes about a consequence, about an outcome,
Yeah.
do you follow me?
Right.
Then it becomes bigger than itself. It's more than just about a shot.
Yeah.
And I think we all have the tendency to do that. I didn't really realize I was doing that until I started really uncovering these things to where, and what I mean by that is I would have a deer walking in and I'm thinking about calling Jet
Yeah.
and saying, hey buddy, I just shot a deer. Or thinking about coming in and saying, hey Susie, you want another deer? I got one in the back of the truck.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about calling buddies and having buddies, friends come and help drag it out. I'm thinking about it on the wall in my living room.
Yeah.
And thinking about the consequences make it nerve-wracking.
Right.
And again, going back to golf, the golf analogy, there's been a lot of golf on. It's summertime.
Yeah.
You watch golf, they talk, you can hear the discussion between the caddy and the golfer a lot more now. A lot of these caddies, right before those guys get up there to make that shot, they say, all right, are you committed? Stay present.
Yeah.
Be in this moment. Be committed.
Yeah.
And that's so true.
Yeah.
What I've had to do is I've had to stop thinking about all that stuff. I actually now, you know, I almost try to talk myself off the ledge.
Yeah.
I tell myself, hey, this isn't going to work out.
Right.
You know, like it's most likely going to walk away.
Yeah.
I try to ease the nerves in that way, to not think about the consequence, just be here in the moment.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I even sometimes will like, it sounds like I have a double personality, because I'll be like, all right, stupid. You know what I mean? Like, don't screw this up. You know, like, let's just stay right here, do your thing. Don't think about later. Like, let's think about right now.
Yeah.
You know, when I used to guide, I always joked, and I've said this here these last couple of years to friends too. You know, when I used to guide, I said, listen, dude, all I need you to do is the last 10 seconds.
Yeah.
That's all I need you to think about. You need to dominate the last 10 seconds. And that's what we need to do too. But the problem is what I had a tendency to do is during the last 10 seconds, I was thinking about the next 10 hours after that.
Right.
And then I would blow it.
Yeah.
And then I would spend the next 10 hours, the next 10 days, the next 10 weeks thinking, gosh darn it, if I could just have that back, you know? And that is what's so fun about bow hunting too.
Yeah.
There is such a ultimate consequence when that arrow goes out of the bow. It can either be euphoria or it can be devastating,
Right. Yeah.
you know?
Definitely.
And so I have really tried to stay present. Even when we go out and shoot our bows, I did that the other day. I caught myself. I had shot 2 right there. And I was like, oh yeah. I'm like, oh baby, I'm going to get this third one right in there.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that. I wasn't committed and present in getting it right there in the middle. I was thinking about, I'm so excited to go up and have a 3-shot group right there. And what you and I were going to talk about and high five and be like, yeah. I was getting ahead of myself. And what did I do? I punched it.
Yeah.
Because I was over here in La La Land.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely.
And so I've really tried to think about that when I'm out there.
Yeah.
And like I've said earlier and through this whole discussion is try to figure out ways to think about those things, but translate them into your practicing.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Because if you're not practicing that way, it's not going to be there in the hunting.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the reality is that we spend days, weeks, months practicing, but we spend, like we talked about earlier, very few seconds actually in the act of letting the arrow fly and going towards a deer.
Right.
I'll tell you what, this has been good. Yeah. I feel like we've covered a lot.
Oh, we covered a ton.
Yeah. I mean, and again, the crazy thing is, dude, is we could bring one more person in here and have a whole nother 2-hour discussion about
perspective,
their setup, their perspective, the way they do things. You know, I think the overarching things that I would say from this discussion is, man, there's nothing better than just getting out there and shooting your bow.
Oh, you can't beat it.
Yep.
So much fun.
Yep. The more reps that you can put in is great.
Yeah.
I tend to have a tendency to go for more quality because quality for me translates into what I'm really doing in hunting, because I'm not shooting 100 arrows when I'm hunting. But yeah, get out there, shoot your bow, you know, try to make as many quality shots during your practice rather than just ripping them all the time. You know, try to be open-minded about what your setup is. Be willing to adjust and maybe try new things.
Right.
Have good discussions with your buddies.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, it's just a really, really fun thing. And then try to figure out how you can translate all this practicing that we do all summer, you know, into the hunting season.
Yeah.
The last thing I would say that I think we should touch on is something that I also have struggled with is we're doing all this shooting in the summer, and we do all this shooting in the spring and the summer, and then all of a sudden it gets to the fall. And I know I've had a tendency in the past, not these last couple of years, but years before that, where I spent a lot of time holding my bow, but I'm not spending a lot of time drawing it back.
Yeah, exactly.
All of a sudden I put in all this work and I climbed up this hill of preparation and skill that I'd honed in on my bow. And then I started to kind of let that rock roll back down the hill because I wasn't shooting as much.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I've started to do, and we've talked about this, is I do this in the fall actually here. My target that I have, I'll put in my office and I'll do one shot, even at a couple yards. If I can do it in my backyard, you know, Scott Elrod talked about that and what he doesn't shoot hundreds of arrows, but he gets up every morning and he whips a couple.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's just one,
right,
just to keep your mind sharp, keep your body sharp, and just get one arrow.
Yeah.
You know, if you do one arrow 7 days a week for a month, like, it starts to add up. I mean, it's not like it's hundreds of arrows, but it's better than zero.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I would just say I've had to challenge myself to, man, just when hunting season starts, you got to keep shooting.
Yeah, without a doubt.
You know, we all want to be in the woods.
Yeah.
But man, keep shooting.
Yeah.
Heck, I've even just had my target in my truck and shot at my truck before I walk out. I just keep 2 arrows underneath the seat.
Yeah.
Just put it out there at 20 yards.
Right.
I know my rangefinder is buried in my pack, but I can step off 20 yards quick.
Yeah, exactly.
And just whip a couple.
Right.
Okay, we're ready to rock.
Yep.
I think that can make a big difference too.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So here's a question for you. I'm describing what I go through during the actual scenario when I actually shoot a deer. What would you say? Do you feel that? I mean, do you feel the pressure, the anticipation, the adrenaline? I mean, how do you deal with that? Or have you thought about these type of things? Or like, you know, what does that mean for you? Like, do you agree with what I'm saying? I mean, does that tie in for you too?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is like, if I go into a hunt that I'm really confident in, like that I feel like I'm going to have a good chance, I definitely get that thing like, oh, I can't wait to call my dad right away. Can't wait to call Zip. Like, I get that even before I even see a deer sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, like I just like, I'm like,
you're thinking about the consequence.
The anticipation of it just like really kind of fires me up and gets me going a little bit. Because like that's the fun part of to me.
Yep.
It's like I could care less about me shooting a deer, but I love telling the story and talking to people about it.
Yes.
When it comes to actually shooting, I don't know. The last buck I shot was 2 years ago with my bow. And I was actually really in the moment for that one. And I was very surprised because it was my first nice buck that I shot with my bow.
Yeah.
And I was always like, I wonder how that's going to be, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But like, I still remember, like, I have a mental image in my head of the bubble being just perfectly with the deer in the housing.
Oh.
And just pulling it. I double lung heart shot him. Like, I just drilled him.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of cool for me just because, like, I wasn't really sure how I was going to react.
Yep.
Because, like, I haven't really shot too many deer with my bow, but the ones that I have, I mean, I killed them, but it wasn't ever like oh yeah, that drilled them. So
yeah.
I'm like, what's going to happen when like a buck comes in? Because
yep.
like, it's going to be more adrenaline and stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, that's like the one thing I remember. Other than that, like, I don't remember drawing my bow.
Oh, really?
I don't even remember like seeing it run off. Like, I just literally like have a vision in my mind of the housing with the one pin right behind the shoulder and the bubble just like perfect.
Crazy.
That's like the only thing I remember.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see what happens though, because I have a feeling that, I'm hoping this year I can shoot at a little bit more, but I don't know. We'll see.
That's one of the good thing about Iowa and that's one thing we haven't touched on that I have, how I feel like I have gone through this process is, and again, going back to the golf thing, I feel like I had a realization that I needed to take more swings.
Yeah, exactly. That's where
I need to take more swings. And I was very fortunate in that there's tons of doe tags and I can get, if I wanted to buy 1,000 doe tags, I could.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I'm not doing that.
And that's like the one thing that, like, if I could go back and start over hunting again when I was 12, I would shoot way more deer. Because like when I was 15, I shot a pretty nice buck, and I know we talked about this in an earlier podcast, but I really let my ego get in the way because I'm like, oh, I'm not shooting another one bigger. Well, that was really dumb of me because I just didn't shoot very many deer, you know, especially with my bow. Like, I
didn't put yourself in that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't put yourself in that moment that there could have been so much that you could have honed and learned season after season.
Yeah.
Even if it was 2 deer a year times 5 years.
Exactly.
That's 10 more deer. That's 10 more situations in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
In everything. The adrenaline, the pressure, the anticipation, the consequences, the nerves that you could have been sharpening that knife.
Well, yeah, and that's why at 23 years old, I was wondering what's going to happen when a nice buck comes out. Am I going to be able to handle it?
Yeah.
You don't want to have that. Mm-hmm. You want to know that you're ready to, you know, make a good ethical shot on the deer.
Yep.
So
I'll tell you what, the other thing that I just thought of that I was like, oh man, I'm glad I really want to get to this is, and I don't even know where I heard this, but I heard it and it was like, holy crapper, why didn't I ever think about this? I heard this said that, and I do this 1,000%. When you go deer hunting, if your broadhead touches a deer's heart, you're going to kill that deer. Mm-hmm. Let that soak in.
Yeah.
If your broadhead touches the heart, the deer's going to die.
Yeah.
So, dude, I am telling you, I have gotten obsessed with a white-tailed deer's anatomy.
Yeah.
And where that deer, where his heart is or her heart is in broadside, in quartering to, in quartering away.
Yeah.
And trying to take high percentage shots that will allow me to have my arrow touch that deer's heart. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, dude, that has made I like want to swear because it's made such a huge difference. I'm not going to make you beep it out.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference. I'm telling you, when I go hunting, all the stuff that I'm talking about and describing, what it really comes down to is the leg forward, leg back, the leg forward, the leg straight. Mm-hmm. Where is the deer's heart?
Yeah. How
do I get it so my arrow touches the deer's heart? Actually, I found online after that, they make targets, 3D targets.
Which it's like an anatomy, isn't it?
Yes, and it has holes that the arrow goes through and you can see. And we could put that up here. I don't even know who makes it.
Yeah.
And there's videos I've found since then. After I had heard this, like a year after I heard it, I saw a video about it. I'm like, yes. Mm-hmm. I was like, amen, brother.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, dude, all I think about is how do I make my arrow touch the deer's heart?
Right.
If it can touch its heart, and I'm thinking about, like, I'm looking at a deer, but I feel like I'm Superman. And I'm like looking at, all I see is their shoulder and their ribs and their heart, and where is it?
Yeah.
And how do I get my arrow to touch the heart?
Right.
If I can touch the heart, oh baby, that deer is not going very far. And I'm telling you, and again, I'm not Daniel Boone, and I'm not like Mr. Professional, whatever. But if I can touch the deer's heart, it is not going very far.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that I'm trying to hug a shoulder and hit him in the shoulder blade, but I'll tell you what, if I can get those broadside or quartering away shots, if I can get his or her leg forward,
Yeah.
dude, if I can touch their heart, done.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, really think about that, dude. If you let this soak in, you're going to be like, oh snap, dude. I'm telling you, man,
that has been staring at my
dude. That is a game changer. I should have it right here in front of us right now. It's in my truck. I don't even know the
booklet.
Yes. I don't know who offhand makes it. We will put a link here to their website. Bing. 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 But I have it in my truck that literally has it's multiple layers of transparent paper, not paper. I have that booklet.
Yeah.
I keep it in a truck. I wish I had it in front of me. We'll put a link to it right here.
Bing.
But what it does is it has multiple layers of transparency that you can see, where you can see its fur, then you can see its skeletal system, its circulatory system, its organs. It's crazy, dude. I'm telling you, I look at that all the time. It's got deer, elk, turkey. I have all of them. I have them all in a booklet. I look at that all the time, dude.
Well, it's the same thing as that poster I got in my house.
Exactly.
Because it's cool because it shows the skeletal system,
yes,
muscular, and then the actual, anatomy of the heart and lungs and everything, all the veins, and
yes.
it's
I'm
very
telling
interesting.
You, have that broadhead touch to heart, game over.
Dead.
I'm telling you, it's just like, it was so funny because when I heard that, I was like, duh. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, exactly.
Just have the arrow touch the heart.
Yeah, it all makes sense.
Yes. I mean, it sounds so cliche, but it just makes so much sense. So have the arrow touch the heart.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, man, we covered a lot.
Yeah.
Super stoked. This has been a really good discussion.
Yeah.
I feel like I zoned out for a minute. I was just like, there was just a lot flowing there.
That's all right.
No, but it's good. I'm glad we had this discussion. Again, get out there, shoot your bow.
Yep.
Think about how you're practicing, how that translates to hunting.
Yeah.
I mean, just get out there and enjoy it.
Just do it.
Yep, just do it. The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yep.
And hopefully this maybe just shed some light on just what we're doing. It's not like it's right or wrong. It's just the way we do it.
Yep.
And maybe somebody that's listening to this is going to go, you know what? I'm going to think about that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to change what I do. This is going to help me be more successful. Because at the end of the day, we all love to bow hunt. We love to try to kill deer.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, that's the end. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast. Another one of the books. I'm Cole Tanner.
I'm Nick Simon.
Thanks for listening. Good luck out there. Shoot a biggin.
We love talking about hunting.
We heart talking about hunting. Do the sound effect. Beep, 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 beep. Beep, 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 beep. One more time.
We love talking about hunting.
We love talking about hunting.